So it should go without saying that the views and opinions continue to be my own. Um, I work for the American Diabetes Association, but they don't control anything. They don't impact anything. I don't speak for them. They don't speak for me. So there's that grain of salt you can take this with. I was in Philadelphia for the past week or so. Scientific sessions, American Diabetes Association's big diabetes much ado. People from all across the world come through and talk about all good things diabetes related. It's aimed at the professional community. They come in and talk very high science. As staff there, my job was to kind of patrol. We were assigned different rooms to make sure that the speakers show up and that things are flowing smoothly, and people have water or whatever they need if there are any technical difficulties, and we call the right people on our sweet Nextel phones. So for the most part, we don't necessarily get to choose what sessions we go to as staff, but because we're able to sit in, essentially we're able to sit in on the ones that we're assigned. Sometimes that means that it's 2 hours of insulin action in type 2 diabetic mice. Other times it's talking about behavior or economy of diabetes and things like that, where it's something that might be a little more accessible to somebody like you or me. Um, and this is my second year doing it. Last year I was in San Diego. It was a lot nicer just because it was San Diego, and apparently San Diego just decides to be 85 degrees and clear skies all the time. I understand why everybody loves Southern California. I kind of went on a little mini Twitter rant at the end of the session, and I wanted to kind of reiterate some of my thoughts and hopefully start some kind of civilized discussion. There was a comment that, in retrospect, I don't want to say backpedal, but it just realized that the word choice might not have been ideal. But this started off when I saw a comment saying that scientific sessions for us, for the diabetic online community, for the diabetes online community, is largely irrelevant. And while that statement was later clarified, at least the initial word choice kind of bugged me, and I initially responded saying, "Okay, well, it's not aimed at us, at the regular Joes. It's for medical professionals. It's a professional thing." But I don't think just because it's not for us doesn't mean it's irrelevant. And I thought about it, and then I went on my little Twitter rant. And the basic kind of summary of all of it was that this thing is meant for them first and foremost. Regular people can attend it if you want, if you have the right connections, or if you're able to kind of get in with a certain company or one like something like that. You might be able to go and report from a patient perspective there, but this is a conference for medical professionals. It's aimed at all of those people and all these brilliant minds. So I think this year the attendance was like 65, almost 70% international. All these brilliant minds come into a single city once a year to talk about diabetes. And yes, it's important. Yes, it's a big deal. Yes, it is our lives that they're ultimately talking about. But there's a lot of high science that has to be discussed first. And we can't get carried away just because every now and then there's going to be a session that you might be reading about on Twitter that's, hey, all of a sudden, hey, I understand, what they're talking about, because they're talking about, the emotional impact of diabetes, or the cost of healthcare or something like that. Just because some of the topics at some of these sessions might be easier to translate doesn't necessarily mean that it's on its way to becoming a more consumer-friendly kind of event. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that there are plenty of opportunities for the patient perspective to be involved in these discussions. It's my hope that as these conversations continue to evolve and grow, that the patient perspective will continue to be included, and hopefully it'll be sought out more where appropriate. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there's a lot of science involved in what's going on here. And we need to let the smart people deal with that first, deal with the science part, and then once the science of everything is dealt with, then they can bring us in. Then they can say, okay, now what are you feeling? What do you think about this? But they need to deal with the complicated part first. And let these guys do what they do, and then we can hopefully chime in at some point. I don't think that we should be, I don't want to say jealous, but I don't think that we should be bitter or upset or just generally disgruntled or any kind of moderately negative emotion. They shouldn't have that kind of stuff going on, because these types of conferences need to occur. There are plenty of other opportunities for the patient perspective. There are things like Friends for Life where it's just about us and the medical professional. They can be there, but they're not the primary. But for something like science sessions, we need to be okay with the fact that they can handle their thing. And we also need to be okay with the fact that we may not necessarily understand everything that they're talking about. somebody will translate it into English at some point whenever we need to know what's going on. But I don't need to know about every single minute detail about what's going on with liver and kidney function whenever it's tapped with some kind of weird, letter and number combination of some kind of chromosome thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Human body is incredibly complicated, and I'm sure you all know, but that doesn't mean that we need to be a part of every single piece of that conversation. I might be overreacting. It's entirely possible that I take this a little too personal because I work for the American Diabetes Association. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I understand that that could be interpreted just by watching this. But size sessions is a big deal for a number of people a wide variety of reasons, and it's yes, it's important. Yes, it's cool that we can have a patient perspective occasionally there, but it's I don't think this thing could potentially be a little more consumer friendly, if you will, but it's never going to be 100%. It's never going to be 50% consumer friendly. It's not for us, and that shouldn't be a problem. It's one of those weird things where I go to this conference and I actually posted a picture. There's a map in one of the main kind of common meeting areas, and people can put little thumbtacks up there and indicate where they come from. And of course, people are going to put stuff from like Antarctica and random remote places that don't really exist. But for the most part, I feel like people are being honest. And it is incredibly inspiring to see that people are coming literally from all over the world to this year Philadelphia to talk about diabetes. I mean, these people are making it their life's work to deal with something that's diabetes related, and it's incredibly encouraging, incredibly inspiring to see that you have all of these brilliant minds that decided to devote their lives and their careers and everything to something that hopefully will benefit you and me. And I like that. So I realize what a busted idea it is to try to record this thing with an orange wall behind me as I'm wearing an orange shirt, but I'm too lazy to actually change.